What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another tier list I'm making out of boredom. A quick reminder, or not a reminder, just this is the first time saying this. I'm not going to be uploading any Paper Mario videos for like a couple days because obviously, Christmas stuff and, all that. So that's why, obviously. But I'm back with another tier list that I'm doing because I can. And today we're ranking Zelda villains. So I'm going to be able to do all of these because I haven't played all the Zelda games, but I do know about all the villains. And they're the best part of all the games. So we're going to start off, who is this? This is Onyx, right? Yeah, Onyx. He's from, I can't remember if he's from, I think he's from Oracle of Ages. Yeah, Onyx. He can go in C. I mean, it's really hard to write a villain that's like in depth with a lot of backstory who's genuinely intimidating on the Game Boy. But I mean, they did an alright job. I think the entire reason he's memorable is because his final phase in the final boss fight with him, where he turns into a giant dragon, you gotta like jump on him. He's an alright villain. I don't really think I want him to return. He's just kind of a one-off bad guy that he's alright. I feel like they could do a lot more with him if they had better technology. But until the Oracle games get remakes, which I really hope they do because I want to play those, I think he's going to go at C for me. Because what they could do, they did do, and I'll commend them for that. Phantom Ganon, I'm going to put in D. He's not a main villain. I don't know. Like all these other guys I can see down here, these are main villains. This is just the first adult boss from Ocarina of Time. I don't know. He's not a huge character at all. He is never a main villain. I don't know why he's on this list. But he's a one-note bad guy. He's just a phantom. He's just a ghost recreation of Ganondorf, whose entire purpose is to trick I can't speak. His Phantom Ganon's entire purpose, at least this version of him from Ocarina of Time, the entire point of his character is to just trick you into thinking you're fighting Ganondorf for the first time when you play. That's the boss fight's cool, where he's jumping in and out of paintings and there's multiple, and you're shooting at him, and then he jumps out of the painting. I mean, the boss fight's cool, but he's not a main villain, so he goes in D. He literally has no dialogue or any backstory. He's just a guy that Ganondorf created to troll Link. That's his entire character. Dark Link, D as well. Not a main. Actually, no, that's not true. He is a main villain. He's the special final boss of Zelda 2. B. I'm gonna put him in B. He's been in a lot of games, and he's not ever a main villain, but he's shown up enough where I can consider him I don't want to call it a side villain, but he's a good villain. He has more of a character than Onyx does, despite the fact that Onyx, talks, and Dark Link doesn't. We don't know anything about Dark Link. He's just like this weird shadow clone. Yeah, but you fight him a lot in the games. You fight him in Zelda 2. He's the final boss of that game. He's the mini-boss in the Water Temple in Ocarina of Time. I'm pretty sure he's in Twilight Princess, I think. He's not... I don't know, he's in a lot of games. And I'm putting him in B because every single time you fight him, it's consistently fun. Like, he's the most memorable part of whatever game he's in. No, actually, that's not true. Like, I meant, like, whatever part of the area he's in. Like, for example, the Water Temple, he's the most memorable part of the Water Temple. That makes sense. Let me clear that up. Like, Zelda 2, he's the most memorable part of Zelda 2. Like, he's a good villain. He's really interesting. He has, like, zero backstory, so he's basically just all speculation. But I kind of like that. So he gets a B. Demise. This is S. He's important. Demise is the main villain of Skyward Sword, which is the, Skyward Sword is basically the game that explains, the beginning of Zelda, like the series, the story. So Demise is the guy who, when Link kills him at the end of Skyward Sword, he's the one that puts the curse on Hyrule. So Ganon they're all reincarnations. Like, the people being, like, Ganondorf coming back, Ganon coming back, children being named Link and Zelda. He's the whole point of it. He's the one that put the curse to have the evil constantly return to Hyrule. And that's really interesting because, they seem to be doing stuff with him in Breath of the Wild, too. They released Skyward Sword HD, which is kind of weird for Zelda's 35th anniversary. And then the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer showed off all this stuff in the sky. And then the trailer also showed off Ganondorf's dead body, like his skeleton, as his eyes glue orange in like a cave. And if you play the music that's playing during that scene backwards, it actually plays Demise's theme. So I really have a feeling that they're doing something with him, which is going to be really interesting because he's a really good villain. He's really intimidating. He's cool. He definitely goes in S tier. Deathel, I'm going to put at B. He's another Game Boy villain, but he's better than Onyx. He's the final boss of Link's Awakening, which I personally believe is darker than Majora's Mask. And Link's Awakening is my favorite 2D Zelda, and my favorite 3D Zelda is Majora's Mask, so I like the dark ones. They're also the two weirdest Zelda games, which I guess is fitting, because they're both directed by the same guy. But, he's an alright villain. He's definitely better than Onyx and Phantom Ganon, which I don't know why he's on here still. The whole point of him is that he's not even really the villain, because, obviously, spoiler alert for all the games, but clearly it's a tier list of the villains. Of course I'm going to be talking about them. That's obvious. But spoiler alert anyway for the Zelda games. I don't really care. I don't need to put it in here. You guys know. The whole point of Link's Awakening, like the ending, the big reveal, the twist, is that the Koholint Island, like the entire game is a dream. And you find that out before the last 2 dungeons, so you have some time to like think about it. And the entire game, just perspective, the way characters talk, it changes. It's weird. And then you get like the entire point. I don't know how to describe it. Basically, the entire game, the twist is that Link has inner turmoil, where he can either choose to save himself and the Windfish by killing Deathel, which would destroy Koholint Island and kill everyone on it. Who, if you played the game, Link grows really close to everyone on it. Or Link can basically kill himself by not killing Deathel, but as a result of that, Hyrule would be unsafe. He'd basically die, and that also runs the risk of, Deathel just becoming way too strong and overrunning Koholint Island anyway. So it's weird. The game really makes Link the bad guy. Because, yeah, the Windfish and Marin may have gotten free, but Link also just killed an entire island of people. And that's really dark. But I like him, he's cool. He goes in B. Ganondorf, S. Easy. Good villain. He first showed up in Ocarina of Time. Although he was first mentioned in Link to the Past. He first showed up in Ocarina of Time. The thing about Ganondorf is that he's such a sad character. So the Gerudo tribe are cursed where they're all women except for one male that's born every 1,000 years. And that male becomes the king of the Gerudo tribe. And Ganondorf was the king, and he wasn't a bad guy at first. He was just a guy who saw Hyrule as a better place to live because all of his people were starving and dying in the desert. And everyone in Hyrule was thriving. But he got, obviously because of Demise's curse, he got possessed by Ganon. And he's just this bad guy now. And then it's even worse because in Wind Waker, he's not possessed by Ganon anymore. He's just this guy trying to save himself and reset Hyrule because of all the stuff he did. And then he ends up getting killed anyway. He's a really good character. I really like him. He's just a good villain. He's the Link's archenemy, I guess. He's the main bad guy of the series because he's technically Ganon. But not really, but we'll get into that. Girahim goes in A. He's the guy who works for Demise. He's the guy who's trying to revive Demise all throughout Skyward Sword. You fight him 3 times. He's a good villain, but I feel like they could have done a tiny bit more of him. I do like the reveal at the end where it turns out he's just Demise's sword. like kind of how Fi is the Master Sword to you when you're playing. He's nuts. He's just a psychopath. He's crazy. That's not even like exaggerating. He's literally like, I'm pretty sure he's insane or something. He's a really well written character. He starts off all, polite and proper and all fancy, and then by the end of the game he's just absolutely nuts. Because every single time you beat him, he just gets angrier and angrier until the end when he's just completely off the rails, just trying to kill you. He doesn't even care about reviving Demise anymore, which he eventually does anyway. But he's a really good villain. I really wish they did more with him, because he really only shows up, at the end of dungeons as a surprise. He's still a well-written character, still a good character. I like him. I hope he comes back for Breath of the Wild, too. But he's not... They could have done a little bit more with him, I feel. Vati goes in... D, actually. He's a weak villain. Minish Cap is a really good game, but he is just not a good villain. He's the typical, I used to be a good guy, and then I betrayed my master, and now I'm gonna take over everyone, and I'm evil. He's a really one-note villain. I don't really like him. I like Minish Cap a lot. I just don't like Vati as a character. I feel like they could have made him a lot more menacing. No. I don't like him as a villain. His character design is cool. He's cool, but he's not a good villain. They don't do much with him. Literally every single plot twist they could possibly do with his character, that's like a cliche, they do. He's always talking highly of himself. He has the surprise, oh no, you defeated me, easy first phase. And then he has the second. He's just not a good villain. What he does in the plot is cool. He's just not a good... I don't know. I don't like him. Varan, I actually can't comment on. I think she's going to go in C. I don't know much about Oracle of Seasons. I've only really watched people play and talk about ages. I haven't got around to any of the season stuff. I've heard she's a really good villain, but I have nothing. Actually, we're gonna put her in D only because I have nothing to say about her, and I don't want to put her in a wrong spot that she's not deserving of. So D, I don't think she's a bad villain, but I also don't think she's a good villain because I know nothing about her. Who is this guy? Is he from Hyrule Warriors? Because I don't know who that is. Okay, I don't know who you are, so D. Aghanim goes in D because he's a good villain, but he's literally just Ganon's alter ego in A Link to the Past. You're led on believing he's the main villain, and then after you defeat the first 3 dungeons and, save all 3 pendants and then unlock the Master Sword, you go back to Hyrule Castle to stop him. And then after you beat him, he sends you to the Dark World, which is basically the big surprise. It's the final 8 dungeons of the game. He's an alright villain, but he's just Ganon. That's all he is. He's basically just Ganon. They do the same thing that they do with him as they do with Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time. That's not right, because Ocarina came after A Link to the Past. But basically, he's just Ganondorf. You're led on to believing he's the main villain, and then at the end, he turns into Ganon, and you have to fight Ganon. So he goes in D. He's literally just Ganondorf, actually. He's literally just Ganondorf, except Ganondorf is a copy of him, but way better. He's literally just Ganondorf. He was a person who lied and gained false trust with the king of Hyrule, and then betrayed him and killed him, and then, tried to get the Triforce. He's literally just Ganondorf, but worse. The bird from Wind Waker, D. Well, you know what? No, B. Doesn't have any dialogue, literally just a giant bird Ganondorf set out to try to find Zelda, and, because Ganondorf's dumb, and instead of just looking for Zelda, he sends the bird out to capture, every girl with pointy ears, and Wind Waker Link's little sister happens to have pointy ears. So the entire it's really cool what they do with him, because halfway through the game, you've been building up to trying to save Link's sister. And then you finally just make it to the boss, and you just get this giant hammer, and you just beat the crap out of the bird, and you save your sister. It's a really good revenge story, what they did with the bird. So, the bird goes in B. He's a good villain. Oh, I didn't mean to move. Vati, you go in D. You suck. Yuga can go... Where did I put... Okay. You know what? I'll put Yuga in S. Yuga, for those of you who don't know, is basically Aghanim, kind of. So, Link to the Past was remastered, I guess, on the 3DS in a game called A Link Between Worlds, which was basically a remake / sequel to Link to the... It was a Link to the Past. Like the same map, and the same story, but with different characters. But what they did with Yuga was really cool. How they had Ganon show up and they made them different, and then Yuga possessed Ganon. Yuga's a really well-written villain, and she's actually written so well that I don't want to talk about her, because that game has been getting a lot of popular traction recently, and I really don't want to spoil all the stuff with Yuga. But S tier, Yuga's a great villain. Whoops, I put you on B right now. No. I put someone... Did I put anyone next to Onyx? I don't think so. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'm happy with how the list looks right now anyway. I forget what her name is, but D. I hate that this game is canon. Literally, the plot of this game, and it's canon, I hate it. It's Triforce Heroes is the game. The plot of the game is, there's the Princess of Hyrule, who isn't Zelda. At this point in Hyrule's history, this is canon, by the way. Keep in mind, for the Zelda series. The Princess of Hyrule, Hyrule's all about fashion. And the Princess of Hyrule she's all needy, she's greedy, you know, she's all, I gotta have the best clothes. And then this old lady forces her to wear ugly clothes, and she cries and locks herself in her room. And that's the plot of the game, is you gotta go stop the old woman from making everyone in Hyrule wear ugly clothes. Why is this game canon? I hate it. I hate her. This was my first Zelda game, too, which is the worst part. Oh, God, this game is so bad. Ugh, bad villain. I don't even remember her name. She sucks. Zant, S tier. Oh, presentation mode. Whoops, I said presentation mode, please. Thank you. Zant goes in S. He's from Twilight Princess. Oh, he is such a good villain. He is such a good villain. Twilight Princess is already one of the best Zelda games. It literally feels like you're playing a movie. But he is such a good villain. The entire thing is he's from the Twilight Realm. He's the king or the prince of the Twilights. And he actually he botches Ganondorf's execution and brings Ganondorf into the Twilight Realm, and they strike a deal to, fight against Midna Link. And then at the end of the game, when Ganondorf gets killed by Link and he's praying for Zant to help him, Zant cracks his neck and just kills Ganondorf instantly. He's such a good villain. And then he's built up to be this really sophisticated guy, and then you just actually get to fight with him, and he's just nuts. He's insane. Like Girahim times 10. Yeah, Zant, he's S tier. This is Hyrule Warriors, so D. I haven't played that game at all. Bellum is D, bad villain. Malladus is D. This isn't the main villain. Master, Koga, bad villain. Built up to be really cool, and then the entire boss fight was a joke. That was the point. He's just the leader of this elite clan of, ninjas that fool you a bunch and kidnap you and capture you. And then he ends up just being this fat guy that can't fight for his life, which is funny, but I feel like they should have done that with a different character instead of, because they really could have made him a good villain, but they didn't, which obviously that was the joke, but I feel like they should have, so he goes in D. I forget his name, but he goes in C. He's an alright villain. He turns into a good guy by the end, which I don't like, because he was kind of a good villain, but I don't remember his name. It's like Byron, Brian, or something. I don't remember his name. He's alright. You're D, you're bad, you're Hyrule Warriors. This shouldn't be here because that's the Ganondorf skeleton from the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, and that game hasn't come out yet. And my favorite villain in gaming does not go in D. I just have to do it this way. It goes in S, Majora, and technically the Skull Kid. I love Majora so much. He is such a twisted, evil thing. I don't even know what he's supposed to be. He's like this ancient monster that, like, he was trapped in a mask by an unknown tribe that used the mask for hexing rituals. And then what they ended up doing is they buried the mask that he was trapped in for an unknown reason, because they feared that he was going to grow too strong and do something bad. And then you have the Skull Kid, who is friends with the 4 giants, because the Skull Kid was abandoned. He has no friends. He was exiled. And then he gets to Termina, and he befriends the 4 giants. But then when they sense Majora's evil presence, the 4 giants go off to defend, like, the 4 sacred areas of Termina. But the Skull Kid's naive, so he thinks that the 4 giants are actually just, leaving him, defriending him. And he gets angry, and that anger attracts him to Majora's mask, which is owned by the Happy Mask Salesman. And Skull Kid steals Majora's mask and puts it on. And Majora's mask, Majora technically, just possesses him and uses him as a puppet. And then you have Termina. He gives Termina 3 days to live. He starts dropping the moon from the sky, and the people of Termina have 3 days. He's 3 days before the moon falls and just kills everyone. He's such an evil person. He freezes over the Goron Mountain, so the Gorons are starving and dying. He sets Zora River to like extreme temperatures, and they all start burning, and they get sick. Let's see. Yeah, he poisons the swamp. He poisons the swamp. What else does he do? Oh, yeah, that's right. He brings Ikana back from the dead. So there was this really bloody war that happened in Ikana. And finally, after years, all the soldiers who died finally began to rest peacefully. But he brought them back from the dead and tricked their souls into thinking the war was still going on, just to psychologically torture them. That's what I love about Majora, is that he doesn't have a motive at all. He just does it. He just is evil because he likes it. He just likes to torture people who are below him in power. He has such an ego. He's such a good villain, and I want them to bring him back, but at the same time I don't. Because I feel like if they bring him back, they're going to ruin his character. But he's just, I think, the best well-written... He's such a good villain. And then after all that, if you 100% the game and get all the masks, you get the Fierce Deity mask, and you just turn into the Fierce Deity, and you just defeat him. You just beat him up, and you win the fight in, seconds. All 3 of his phases go down in, under a minute. And then on top of all that, the 4 giants that went to protect the sectors, the 4 areas of Termina, no, he trapped them in, he trapped the 4 giants in masks, and then he summoned these soldiers of his little evil army, Adola, which is a giant, tribe, giant tribal warrior. He trapped the giants and a mask on him. Goat, which is this giant mechanical bull. He trapped the second giant and a mask on Goat. Gyorg, which is a giant fish. He trapped the third giant and a mask on Gyorg. And then finally Twin Mold, he trapped the 4. He just hates living things. He's such a good villain. You just love to hate him. He's such a good villain. It really takes playing the game to get the full reason on why. Watching any videos on YouTube or hearing people talk about him, it doesn't do him any justice. You literally have to play the game and just see how detrimental he was to Termina to fully get why he's such a good villain. Like, he just takes this peaceful, loving country of Termina and just turns everyone against each other. And it's so sad, too, because on the first day, everyone in Termina is, they're all happy. They're like, oh, I wonder where the moon's falling. On the second day, they realize what's happening, and they start to panic. And then on the third day, they all just sit around inside their homes and just wait for the moon to come and kill them all. He's just such he's so evil. I love him. He's such a good villain. Is that all on the list? That's all. Yeah, I've talked about Majora enough. That's all I really have to say. I kind of just did this video out of boredom, and because I feel like you guys need at least some content while you're waiting for Paper Mario to come back. Yeah, once again, I'm not going to be uploading for a few days because of Christmas stuff. And I guess I'll see you guys